Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for coming and joining us at this conversation with IDEX Health Science. My goal today is to walk you through the most recent acquisition that IDEX has made, the acquisition of thinXXS Microtechnology, and walk you through how, in fact, that business fits into our overall strategy with IDEX Health Science. To do that, though, I wanted to try to take you through three elements. First, I want to give you just a quick background on IDEX Corporation, a little bit of a history of IDEX Health Science, the business that serves the life science industry and many of the folks that actually are here in attendance at Analytica this year. So it's an exciting opportunity to be able to share this not only with the media but with many of our customers who are here in attendance. And then talk about how the acquisition of thinXXS really contributes to our emergence as a true global leader in microfluidics and consumables. So to begin, IDEX Corporation is a publicly held company based in Chicago, Illinois in the United States. It was founded in 1988, and over the course of the last 30 years, IDEX has really built itself up as a corporation through serial acquisition. So in the course of those 30 years, the company has acquired over 70 companies. And it's through that series of acquisitions around some very, very specific market dynamics that the company has actually been able to generate very, very good growth over those years. When we report the public company's earnings, we report in three different businesses. And so just to give you a flavor of the corporation, the first of those businesses is what we call fluid and metering, the first of those business segments we call fluid and metering. And if you go back 30 years, it was the original founding set of companies around IDEX in 1988. And those businesses are really driven around the fluidics and fluid management associated with the oil and energy and gas businesses in the U.S. And so when you think about it, it's the pumps and the valves and the metering tools that allow you to measure how much oil is coming out of the ground, how much oil is going into and out of trucks. We effectively get to determine how much people get paid for the oil and how much tax is paid on all that oil that gets moved. So it's a pretty interesting business. We also have a series of businesses around what we call fire and safety. So if you've ever known somebody who was actually extracted from an accident, in an automobile accident, using hydraulic tools like the Jaws of Life, those are IDEX products. So we bought the company that manufactures those. If you think about a fire truck, whether it be in the US or in Europe these days, all of the fluid management of the water that moves in that truck for the purpose of putting out fires is pumped and valved by IDEX products. So we have a number of different franchise businesses like this that sort of make up each of these different segments. And then IDEX Health Science is a big part of the Health and Science reporting segment. There are some other businesses beyond IDEX Health Science in that reporting segment, but IDEX Health Science does represent the vast majority of the publicly reported revenue there. The primary message for us, and really the key theme for a lot of the strategic intent around what we have been doing in IDEX Health Science, is really something that's developed out of the close work and partnership that we have with many of our customers. That partnership is really driven by the ability to sit across the table from our customers and really work very closely with them to understand what problems they're really trying to solve and how we can use not only the component technologies that are part of our portfolio, but the engineering expertise, the manufacturing expertise, the supply chain expertise to actually work with our customer partners to really help develop some very, very inspired solutions for a lot of the analytical challenges that they spend most of their business life trying to solve. When this works well, we see it in the form of some important new developments. We see custom modules, technologies that have never been brought together before, in ways that they've never been brought together before, to really address some of the important instrumentation and engineering challenges that our customers are after. We see products that are better suited for manufacturability. They're easier and more cost-effective to manufacture. As importantly, in many cases, they're easier and more effective to actually service in the field once they've been designed. And we spend a lot of our time and energy in these partnerships working with our customers to become more and more responsive to their engineering and development needs, trying to turn that development time around faster so that, in fact, their ability to get their products to market is improved. But it's through that partnership that we actually get to these kinds of capabilities. And there's some great examples for us of how this has really translated into real success for our customers in bringing some exciting technologies across the analytical instrumentation market across life science and biotech research markets, and importantly in the in vitro diagnostics markets as well. So as I mentioned, we've built up this portfolio of businesses that includes component technologies in fluidics and optics, recently through the acquisitions of Sidra Precision Services and thinXXS, the ability to add consumables, and through work with our customers, the ability to design these assemblies. And that portfolio really it consists of about 10,000 products in our catalog today across a wide range of capabilities. And importantly, it's really backed by about 1,200 really, really wonderful employees who are part of our organization. Everything from manufacturing folks to quality folks to sales and engineering folks that really help on the commercial side. And we've been very fortunate to work with over 1,600 of the original equipment manufacturers that are out designing end-user product tools in this marketplace. IDEX Health Science is truly a global business. We have over 17 business and manufacturing operations, truly on a global basis. When we put together this slide, I didn't really notice it at first, but interestingly in the US, we did sort of color all of the IDEX sites as blue and not red. I just, for those of you who understand American politics, you might appreciate the reference. But what is also important to me is that we do sit by coastal. We have all of our offices either on the west coast of the United States and or up in the Northeast in the United States, which is really where most of the biotech and life science hubs are. So it's always been fun to see that our businesses have grown up around where where this industry is centered, certainly in Central Europe and the UK and in China and Japan. The core of our business is serving the life science marketplace. And through this acquisition with thinXXS, we've recently been able to really expand our presence into the point of care in veterinary markets, and I'll speak to a little bit of that later. But one of the important opportunities is within the group of businesses that I get to manage today at IDEX, we also serve other markets. We serve industrial markets, high-energy lasers used in things like 3D printing, for example. We have a large business in semiconductor metrology, wafer inspection tools, and our ability to provide component technologies there and in the defense and security markets allow us to bring capabilities that we learn from those customers, technology in evolution in some of the highest order challenges that exist in the analytical world beyond life science, back into our core markets in life science. And that's been a real significant opportunity for us when we sit across the table in that partnership with our customers. And one example, just to sort of put some reality around that, a large part of our capability today is in the optics world, where we've been manufacturing very, very high precision, very high resolution optical lenses, objectives that are used in semiconductor wafer metrology. And that technological capability has now been really advanced in use in many of the life science analytical tools for doing direct imaging across many of the applications, specifically genomic applications like next generation sequencing. So our ability to leverage the R&D and technological developments associated with these other markets and bring them back into our core has been really important to us, and I wanted to make sure that at least we could reference the fact that there is a reason why we bring these businesses together. So many of you may know us for one product or the other in our portfolio. You may know us from products like Rheodyne valves, or Upchurch fittings, or Semrock filters, or Mels-Griot lasers, or any of the other components that are part of that 10,000 product portfolio that we've built up over the years. But really one of the things that's been most important to us, and again, a strong element of both our strategy and the success that we have when we work in partnership with our customers, is the ability to start developing assemblies, bringing those component parts together into unique solutions that allow our customers to advance their own science. So whether it's simple things like bringing a pump and a valve together that allow us to help drive fluid management in the area of mass spectrometry for calibrant delivery, whether it be bringing manifolds that we manufacture that allow us to do sample and reagent management and in vitro diagnostics platforms, and combining those with the valves and the degassers to ensure effective movement of that fluid without any bubble challenges that might affect the analytics, or the ability to bring different illumination sources together, whether they be lasers or LEDs as ways of developing new and rapid scanning optics that will allow us to address many of the challenges in the genomic analysis world today. Those kinds of product development opportunities really do come directly from that partnership. And it's fun for us because in many cases we get the opportunity to see some of the most pressing challenges in the world, but we also get to help develop some of the most important solutions to some very, very exciting technologies. So, as I said, for IDEX Health Science, the goal was that over the years, as we built up this portfolio of component companies where we would really be seen as a catalog vendor of things like a pump or a valve or a filter, and folks would come to us for that one core technology, over time, we really started to see ourselves more as a provider of these assemblies, these subsystems that would make our customers' products easier to manufacture, easier to actually service in the field. And importantly, as we reach this next phase of our transformation, it's the ability to move off of that, what we call on the box, as it were, the instrumentation that our customers manufacture, and really start partnering in how they do the analytics, how the actual analysis of a life science or biological test has to be developed, and get us closer to that sample through the production of these consumables and reagents. It's important for me to stress, though, that all of this is done with a clear understanding that we are a business-to-business partner for our customers. I've spent my entire career in the life science industry working with, in fact, many of our customers today, and I have a great deal of respect for the effort, the energy, and the time that these companies have invested in developing commercial channels to bring products to market, developing a sales channel, a service channel, the aftermarket support necessary to be a significant contributor to the life science industry is not our business model. We are an engineering partner to OEMs, and that will be our business model. So we have these core competencies, these core component capabilities, but it will always be in service to our customers. So much like IDEX Corporation, IDEX Health Science has been built up over a series of acquisitions, and dating back to 2002, and our first acquisition in this space, which was Rheodyne Valves. What we've done is very systematically gone about looking at important, high-value technologies that complement each other, that work well together in trying to drive solutions in life science. So starting with Rheodyne and sort of walking through, without going through every single acquisition, what we started to do is really look at the scientific fluidic path. So if you think of the analogy of that fire truck where we're moving, gallons and gallons of water at a time, but we're pumping in, we're valving it, and we're metering it. Well, here we're doing the same thing in scientific scales, right? So we're buying pumps and valves and the ability to actually meter fluids that are moving in many of this instrumentation. So we bought up companies that allow us to add degassing capability and pumping capabilities and manifolding capabilities to do sample and reagent management. Several years ago, through the acquisition of Sidra Precision Services, we entered this microfluidics arena and really started to expand our capabilities as a provider of consumables that serve this market. And then a couple of years back, we actually brought some other IDEX companies into the portfolio that brought that optics capability that allows us to really sort of start building out this complete systems functionality. So in December of this last year, we acquired thinXXS Microtechnology here in Germany. And I wanted to sort of use this picture to help draw an understanding of where we think thinXXS fits in our product portfolio. So if you look at the diagram in blue, what you'll see is many of those scientific fluidics capabilities, the pumping and the valving and the manifolding and the capability of doing sample and reagent management in a life science application. In purple is a lot of the illumination capabilities, whether it be lasers or other light sources, the optical filters and the optics required to actually manage the light from those light sources. And in the green are the imaging capabilities, things like cameras and filters and the microscope objectives and lenses that we manufacture to actually draw from the fluorescent signal that comes off of many of the applications in life science. The intersection of all of those is the sample. It's where that reaction takes place. It's where that either enzymatic reaction takes place or that binding reaction takes place. And that counting of those specific analytes is ultimately what our customers are trying to solve for. And that intersection is often some kind of flow cell or some kind of microfluidic device where the actual analysis is being conducted. And thinX was a great opportunity for us to really bring that intersection together. And it sort of helped sort of tie all of this into an important capability. And if you actually walk by the IDEX Health and Science booth in Hall A2 of the Convention Center, you'll see this graphic prominently shown in the booth, because this is really how we think about how we have brought all of these products together, and how, in fact, when we sit down with customers, we're able to think of not only what any one of these challenges are, what is their primary pumping challenge or their valving challenge, or what is their primary imaging challenge, but really, what is their ultimate analytical question? What is the problem that they're trying to solve? What engineering challenges have they had as they sat as a group trying to bring a set of fluidics engineers together with a set of optical engineers, with a set of biochemists, and actually trying to figure out how to make sure that that functionality is optimized and translated into an instrument? When we looked at thinX, there were a number of things about the company that we thought were very important, and I wanted to just take a moment to sort of recognize why, in a world of many options, we thought very highly of thinX and thought it would be a very good fit for IDEX Health and Science. If I go back to the IDEX beginnings and you think about those three segments, this life science segment and its importance to our overall health and science business is significant. These are some of the fastest growing businesses in IDEX. While we love our businesses in fire and rescue, and we love our businesses in the oil and energy and gas business, municipal funding and oil and energy are very different industries, as it were, in terms of their dependence on funding sources. The life science business has the benefit of a fairly steady growth, a good set of customer partners with good business capabilities, and markets that are driven by some important and fundamental health needs that really continue to be a significant interest to the corporation. And IDEX really, this has allowed us to really diversify our capabilities beyond just hardware and really start focusing on these reagents and consumables. This at-the-sample principle for us is important because it brings us closer to the actual applied science and not just as an engineering company. It also really complements our optics capabilities. The reality is that, in every case that we talk to somebody about making one of these microfluidic devices, they're clearly trying to solve for the optical and imaging challenges to actually get a readout from that. And it opens some new areas and markets. Importantly, across a number of companies that manufacture microfluidics today, thinX is unique. It's very, very differentiated in its technological approach. It was very complementary to what we do in microfluidics with Sidra Precision Services today, and I'll speak to that in a little bit. They have some world-class tooling capability that allows them to create some very, very precise features in the substrates that they manufacture. And that's important because the precision of flow in these devices ultimately defines the analytical quality of the product. And they have some very interesting intellectual property and patents and some really good know-how around some of the important characteristics of bringing microfluidics and sample reagents together on a device. And as I started with, partnership is an important part of how we do business, and thinX really does have an amazing track record with its customers. They're very well liked. They've got a great deal of engineering expertise when they sit down with their customers to try to solve problems. And now bringing the rest of the IDEX portfolio, the sample and reagent management and the optics associated with the imaging and illumination of those samples together really provides us a unique capability when we sit in front of our customers. Oftentimes when people think about microfluidics, they think about the lab on a chip sort of concept, the ability to actually have a sample to answer cartridge, a single device, all of the analysis is done on that device, all of the reagents are carried on board on that device, and that is an important capability, and it's certainly one that's part of our portfolio today. But importantly, we anticipate now, what we do today, go beyond just the microfluidics and really have developed a more comprehensive line of products that includes things like flow cells for doing the analysis, and certainly all of the support consumables, the frames that can support that flow cell in place, reagent kits, consumable trays, other capabilities that actually tie all of the functional needs for our customers together. In combination with and now as a more comprehensive supplier of microfluidics capabilities, I wanted to sort of walk you through how those capabilities translate into a conversation with an engineer on the other side. Oftentimes, one of the challenges that our customers are trying to solve is what's the right material to use. Sometimes it's driven by cost, sometimes it's driven by volume, sometimes in fact it's driven by the actual analytics. And so whether they're using fairly simple materials like PDMS or some polymerics, they also oftentimes need glass, especially if they're looking for things with optical clarity. So we have a broad range of capabilities across very important materials used for microfluidics today. How we in fact structure those features into that material ranges from everything from machining to injection molding. Importantly, we've now got a very, very broad range of bonding capabilities, including some proprietary capabilities that have been developed within IDEX that allow us to bring these materials together to actually form these devices. One of the things that we've become pretty adept at is not only being able to create good microfluidics in glass or good microfluidics in plastics, but the ability to create multi-layer structures where we use glass and plastic together, sometimes to affect capability, chemical and material compatibilities, but sometimes just to manage the cost of the design of the ultimate product. So again, based on the specification and the needs of our customers, that range of capabilities becomes important. And then oftentimes we're now asked not just for a microfluidic device, but these more comprehensive sample to answer cartridges where either a derivatized surface chemistry that allows us to add things like oligos or antibodies to the surface, or the ability to bring dry or wet reagents on board onto the card to functionalize the assay are now all capabilities that we have as part of the portfolio. So that combination of capabilities in optics and fluidics as a whole, the opportunity to define microfluidics devices across that broad range of capabilities really has allowed us to start to focus our energy into some important specific application areas. And so we've worked with customers in pretty much all of these areas at this point in time, and they're all interesting in their own right, and we could spend a lot of time walking through a lot of different applications. I will control myself and only share a couple of them with you today. But it is important to sort of acknowledge that across a very, very broad range of opportunities, whatever that challenge is, we do get the opportunity to sit and have a good discussion with our customers. Not only is there a dimensionality of all of these different applied science areas, there's that volume and price curve that customers are looking for. That often becomes a conversation when we think about microfluidics. But the other dimension that becomes important is really the level of complexity required in the device. In some cases, what a customer really fundamentally needs is something that's very fluidically simple. It's got very tight tolerances, has no chemistry requirement, has no onboard reagents, but is really going to be driven by high volume, low cost capabilities. In some cases, what customers are looking for really does translate into something that's really high complexity. It's a multi-layered device. It's got moderate tolerances, but it does require important functionalization of the surfaces, and it may have some onboard chemistries. The value per card for our customers is pretty high. And so the time and energy to go through and manufacture these devices works in the economics of their science and their application. And then ultimately, we do see more and more the requests for integrated reagents, the ability to do these complete sample to answer devices where it is much more fluidically complex, but invariably there's going to be a need for both sample prep chemistry and reagents that are on board the devices. One of the examples that we like to talk about is a multiplexed immunoassay device. It's a multi-layer card. It's a combination of glass and plastic. When you break the card apart and you think about what really is going on fluidically, there's over 240 microvalves in the multiple layers of that card. There's 16 micropumps in that device. There are reagents on board. We're able to, through the customer's work, they're able to handle all of the sample management and reagent for doing a complete immunoassay on that card. In fact, a highly multiplex set of immunoassays on that card. It's a great example in a number of dimensions, but certainly interestingly for us is the fact that you think about that diagram that I showed with the sample reagents and the illumination and everything else, this card really represents all of the history of IDEX Health Science, right? We've got pumps and valves and fluid management capability at a macro scale in terms of scientific fluidics that might show up in a lot of commercial instrumentation like HPLC systems today, or some of the immunochemistry analyzers that we work with in the IVD market today. But the ability to see those same technological capabilities now reduced into practice in a device of this size is fascinating, and it certainly speaks to where we see some of the market evolution going. The other sort of approach that we often get asked for are to develop these full lab-on-a-chip devices, these sample-to-answer cartridges. And in this case, the actual sensor for the assay is a CMOS chip that's provided by the customer to us, and then we attach that card, that chip, onto a series of cards that are bonded together that allow us to bring multiple wet and dry reagents to do either immunoassays or molecular assays, and in this case, these cards are used for both, and allows us to really define a complete system. And so the engineering on their end is really something that's pneumatically driving the fluids around, compressing the blister packs that are holding the reagents, but the actual analysis is entirely conducted on these cards. And you know, these sorts of components are manufactured in the millions of units a year, where in the previous example, these are things that are generally produced in the thousands. And so it's important to think of the fact that we're able to sort of help bridge that entire range of capabilities in the marketplace today. And as I mentioned, one of the important elements of the intersection for us is where the microfluidics and the optics really meet. And if you think about the fundamentals of a lot of the life science applications that are being done today, whether people are doing DNA analysis, RNA analysis, or protein analysis of some kind, invariably what's really happening in our marketplace is some kind of label, some kind of barcode is being attached that allows the ultimate fluorescence readout of a chemical reaction. It is in fact, possible, therefore, through, for example, the use of these barcodes, to be able to manage multiple types of assays, a DNA assay and a protein assay in the same device, and the ability to actually, form a microstructure, a microfluidics card that allows you to manage these different types of assays, these different types of reagents together, and then ultimately engineer the solution such that the optics are fundamental to the design of the ultimate instrument, and really get an efficient product development exercise is a unique capability that we have today, because we believe we're the only manufacturer that's comprehensively capable to do fluid management, optics, and microfluidics. And when we sit across the table, as I said, in partnership with many of these customers, the conversation that generally ensues is one that says they go through the experience of having these fluidic engineers in one department, a set of optical engineers often in a different building, and a set of biochemists working on the assay in yet another. And they're each developing their piece of the instrument sort of independently. It ultimately gets brought together on some breadboard instrument, tested. All of the challenges are identified, and everybody goes off and does another iteration of this. Oftentimes now, when we get involved in those discussions with customers, we get to really help optimize the design and functionality of those devices. And as we've added capabilities over the last, several years, that conversation gets better and better. It becomes more and more fluent. And so we've seen some really significant advances in the levels of resolution and sensitivity, the levels of instrumentation, cost, and manufacturing ease, and the ultimate level of serviceability of a lot of the instruments that our customers are manufacturing today. So sort of to summarize and recap some of the things that, that we think the acquisition of Thinx and the capabilities that it brings to our overall strategic intent have provided us, it really is to help us model ourselves as the #1 supplier in microfluidics and life science. #1 not only in terms of the standard measure, volume of units and dollars generated in microfluidics, but really #1 in terms of our ability to partner with our customers to bring this comprehensive portfolio of products to their instrument development challenges. And whether it be the biological application that they're trying to work on, or trying to understand the material science necessary to define the substrates, or the engineering to create features in these devices, or the ultimate manufacturing of these devices or the assemblies that might come from it, really is a broad and rare capability that we think allows us to serve as a real contributing partner to the work that our customers do. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your attention and see if there's any questions that we can answer for you. Thank you very much.